Welcome to the Anglotopia podcast, where we discuss British travel, history, and culture. I'm Jonathan Thomas, and this is Jacqueline Thomas, my lovely, beautiful wife. And this week is special as we record, because this is the 50th episode of the Anglotopia podcast. Can you believe we're now at 50 episodes?
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Oh, and we've got special co-hosts today.
Yeah, we've got special co-hosts today.
If you're watching
This
us.
is Cooper and this is Lady. They insisted on being with us while we do this.
They are King Charles Cavalier Spaniels.
So they're going to be very good dogs, right? Okay. And so it took us quite a few years to get to 50 episodes. We only started releasing weekly last year.
Yep.
And then I suspect we'll get to 100 episodes a lot faster than it took us to get to 50. But we thought this was a milestone because at 50 is a lot. It's a lot of work.
That's a lot. I mean, when you think about how much time goes into a podcast, because the finished product is 45 minutes to an hour, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you only see the finished product.
Which is the way it should be.
There's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into this.
Absolutely.
So to celebrate our 50th episode, we thought it would be fun to do a Q&A. And so I hit social media hard the last couple weeks.
These are always so much fun. You guys always come up with the best questions.
Begging people for their questions. And the topics are very broad. British travel, history, culture, or about Anglotopia in general, or our travels. And so we have about like 20 or 25 questions here. And I know our last Q&A was probably one of our most watched episodes. So here we are. And so we got some wonderful questions for you and hopefully some wonderful answers that clip well for social media.
Nice. What tea are you drinking today?
I'm drinking Cornish smuggler's tea because it is close to lunchtime and that's what I drink in the day. And you're not having tea.
I'm having lemon water.
So a couple housekeeping things. So the Friends of Anglotopia Club had an initial goal to get to 200 members so that we could remove the Google ads from Anglotopia. As of this morning, we have 196 members, 4 members away of achieving our goal. So hopefully by the time this goes out next week, we will have reached the 200 member goal. So please, if we haven't reached the goal, please join the Friends of Anglotopia Club. You get early access to the podcast, exclusive newsletter every Sunday in your inbox, discounts on British stuff, and all kinds of cool stuff that you don't get anywhere else.
And thank you to everyone who's signed up. It really makes a difference for us, and thank you for supporting Anglotopia and the great work that we're putting out. Just thank you to everybody who has supported the membership club. Like that, it's kind of been overwhelming.
It is.
In such a lovely way.
And people have the nicest things to say when we put our stuff out through the club. They are so happy to be members, and it's a lovely little bit of Britishness that you pay for, and you also get a lot in return. And then as soon as we hit 200, the Google ads come off of Anglotopia, and that is going to be a very happy day for everybody because the ads are not great.
Well, and it really allows us to continue to put out great content. So blog posts, blogs, newsletters, and really do, so much of online today is AI generated, and I was just having a conversation with some colleagues earlier that it's so easy to find just kind of AI bland, no feeling, like the content that you're getting through Anglotopia is not AI generated. This guy is plugging away at the computer, I promise you. And so, it's just really nice to support good writing, good content.
Yeah, and independent publishers are facing a lot of struggles on the open web, but our core Anglotopia fans have stuck with us, and they're continuing to stick with us, and we have a lot of exciting things planned. So please join the Friends of Anglotopia Club. The link will be in the show notes.
We're not limiting it at 200. So if we're at 200, you keep going. I mean, because it only gets better.
I mean, to give you a preview of coming attractions, the next goal will be to get to, I haven't set the target yet, but will be to set a target to remove the Google ads from Londontopia. Then hopefully we want to create a way to share videos that don't involve having to scroll through social media and YouTube and all that. And so, but to build that, we need supporters who are paying for it to do it, because hosting video is expensive and complicated, and we want to create a special place that is separate from the endless scrolling and doom scrolling of social media. So we'll make a nice little positive place. So those are just some of the things we're planning to going forward. And the more members we get, the more we can do.
All right.
Next thing on the list is we have a new book out, The British Monarchy, A Complete Guide to Britain's Kings and Queens. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding it up. This has been one of our best-selling books we've ever put out. So thank you to everyone who's bought one so far. Please keep buying it. You can buy it directly from us, and you can also buy it in ebook. It is also available wherever you can prefer to buy books, whether it's Amazon, Bookshop at Blackwell's,
your local bookshop.
Your local bookshop. You can get it pretty much everywhere. So please give that a look. Links.
Shop local.
Shop local.
Support your local bookstores.
Support local bookstores. We love them. So link will be in the show notes for that. And then minor housekeeping. We have a new website for the podcast, which debuted a couple episodes ago. This is a shiny new portfolio where you can browse all the previous episodes of the podcast, watch all the videos, see the transcripts, and it's also a great way you can subscribe and get an email notification when a new episode's out. And the big thing, which is something you don't even notice, but I'm very proud of, is we've now taken hosting of the podcast. So we were using a third-party service before. Now we host the podcast ourselves on our own servers, and so we control the entire experience. And you can still listen to our podcast everywhere because that's the glory of podcasts.
Just making it better.
So making it better for everybody.
Strength to strength.
And so as we go forward, that's going to be a big key part of our efforts. So.
All right, let's dig in because we've got a lot of housekeeping here. And thanks for bearing with us.
We got a lot of questions to cover, and this will probably go on longer than our normal podcast. We're prepared for that because this is fun.
We are? I wasn't prepared for that. Ha ha ha.
There will be lunch at the end. So. The first question I got was one that I laughed at because I actually think I got this question last time.
Okay.
Are there any handsome British men that I can date?
I love that.
The answer is yes. There are plenty of British men that you can date. And
they can be found around the world,
too. They can be found around the world. Your local major city has thousands of British expats. Join the BABC. You can meet Brits who are working in your local city. It's the British American Business Council. Every major city has a trade group of British expats. But that aside, we actually have a podcast sponsor who you can get in touch with. We'll put a link in the show notes, and they sponsored an episode last year, Dating Across the Pond. They specialize in matching people in different countries, not just across the pond, but that was their original focus. So we'll put a link in the show notes, and good luck meeting that British man, because that's the easiest way to move there.
Or partner.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
So the next question is a travel-related question. So someone said, I'm thinking of traveling to Great Britain, and I would like to know what are the spots to go to and avoid going to. So this is a very broad question, and
it's a good one, though.
It's a good one, but we also get this question a lot, and it's difficult to answer if we don't know what you're particularly interested in.
Right.
But the safe answer is always London, because you can kind of hit all the Britishy highlights there and have a London and British travel experience. But
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on this, because I think that, London is where most people experience Britain I think London has changed a lot in the time that we've traveled. London is a major global city and a major global hub, and London feels like it. It feels like that. And so if you really want to discover Britishness and you want to discover the United Kingdom, that's where I respectfully disagree. London is lovely, but if you really want to see England, get out of London.
Yeah, and Britain has many top-tier cities worth visiting other than London.
London is great. If you London can be a great way to dip your toes in if you're not sure about transportation but if you have the opportunity, take a day trip, go to Windsor. You could and the trains are really good there. You can take a train to another city.
Just some examples: Bath for Georgian Jane Austen history.
Amazing, super fun city.
Take the train to York, take the train to Newcastle or Leeds or Manchester. There's a lot of great cities to choose from and a lot to see and do there, and a lot to see and do outside those cities as well.
And you don't need a car.
And you don't need a car if you stick to the cities. But if you don't want to just experience the cities, there are plenty of highlights outside of the cities too. Like many Americans will gravitate towards the Cotswolds.
Beautiful.
We recommend the Cotswolds. But these days we kind of actually avoid telling people what not to do, even though there's plenty that we would tend to avoid on our own personally. Like, we're not in a hurry to go back to Stonehenge.
Ha! You're gonna get so much hate mail for that.
Yeah, I mean, Stonehenge is great.
We've done it. We've checked it off of our box. To do.
But having driven adjacent to it probably a dozen times over the years, like, okay, it's...
On our way from London to Dorset. So.
It's like, I'm not in a hurry to go back to Stonehenge. But like I said, we tend to avoid places where people dress up in costumes. It's not really our thing. But those places aren't bad. They're not... Sometimes they're worth visiting.
The one in the Midlands, though, that was kind of cool.
The Bliss Hill... Victorian village.
Yeah, that was actually kind of cool.
That was incredible. I love that, actually.
All right, so we've just contradicted, which is why we don't typically say, hey, avoid this.
Yeah.
Because there's so much nuance and contradiction. And
over the year, like, when we started, a lot of our most popular articles were like, don't do this, and tourist traps. Like, I've softened over the years because I realized through meeting people and discussing people is that, like, these are people's jobs. These are people's careers. And to say, don't go there, that sucks. Like, you're kind of denigrating somebody's livelihood. And that's not cool.
I mean, you can share an opinion, and we do share opinions, but just mindful about how we share them. And just because we didn't like it doesn't mean that it might not be a highlight of somebody else's.
And our audience is broad. So while we like to travel in a certain way and experience things in a certain way, not everybody else is going to experience and travel the way we do. So we don't want to pass judgment or say this is terrible. But we'll try to give you an honest assessment of what we feel about a place. But again, we tend to visit places that are special, and that's
because we deem them special.
Because we deem them. Yeah. So
let's move on.
So this question is, like I said, it's so broad and it's hard to answer. But just go to Britain. Just start there.
Oh, and honestly, again, when we started traveling, like, Anglotopia didn't exist. So there wasn't a place to research, like, oh, I have this, like, let's say I'm really into Bridgerton and I want to do all kinds of stuff around Bridgerton. Well, now you have a site like Anglotopia where you could do all that research and plan. I know, you could plan an itinerary.
Yeah, and so,
Anyway, but enough with that one.
And we are also, like, we're also happy to take more questions via email, like if you want to get more granular, like if you're going to a specific place. And we actually have some questions later on where we're going to go into that. Because believe it or not, we actually haven't been everywhere in Britain. Nope. So there's still some places we don't know a lot about, which is unfortunate. So the next question is, someone said, I don't know if I saw it on your site, but not long after buying my plane ticket from the US, I found out that for the first time in 20 years, the UK requires me to get a special visa. It was easy, totally online, and took just a few moments, and I got an instant answer. I was wondering if this was a new requirement of Yanks because of our new head of state. And so I know what you're talking about. We actually did a whole episode about the new ETA requirement. So I'll link to that in the show notes.
So yes, to answer your question, yes, it is new.
Yes, it is new, but the answer is no. It has nothing to do with the change in administrations or the current political situation in any country. It actually goes back to Brexit and the way Europeans have to travel across their borders. So there has to be an electronic record. And so now all Americans have to also have an electronic record because they want to basically keep track of who is coming and going where they used to not keep track of when you left. As Americans. And so I'll put a link in the show notes to the episode where you can talk about it. It's not a visa. A lot of people think it's a visa. It's not. People who come to the U.S. have to get something similar called an ESTA. And it's just an electronic authorization that says you are allowed to travel. It has your visa status is a completely different thing. And everybody who travels to Britain now has to get one. It costs £10 right now, but in the coming months, it's going to be going up to £16. And it's easy to do. You do it on your phone. There's an app for Android and iOS, and you can do it on a website, but they really don't want you to. On the episode of the podcast, I actually go through the whole process, and then I got approved in less than a minute. And so most people don't have any issues with it. However, I did get some comments from readers who did say that some people have had issues getting approvals. There is apparently no appeal process. so that
Can you just reapply?
you can keep reapplying, but they're probably not going to approve it. And so there was a reader who said that her husband had a criminal history from like a long time ago that was like basically a non-issue anymore, but because it's on his record and you have to say if you've been convicted of a crime, that's like an automatic denial apparently. So if you've been convicted of a crime, usually you're not welcome to travel to Britain. So it's things like that there's these little edge cases where people are getting denied, but they would also normally be denied for a visa.
Would it be advisable to apply for it first and then buy a plane ticket?
Yes.
There you go.
That was my advice in the video is even if you don't have a trip booked, just apply for it and get it because it's good for 2 years.
Nice.
And then you're good to go for 2 years. So
Nice.
actually, we should do yours. We haven't.
Exactly.
We don't have any travel plans, but we should make sure we have it. We should do it for the kids too.
Yep.
So, because it's only £10. I mean, it's $13.75.
All right, what's next?
All right, next one's a fun one. This might take us a long time to answer. What are the top 5 most iconic foods or meals that tourists should try?
Pie. Meat pie. It's an art form. It took me a long time to find it and discover it.
Yeah.
I really like, one night we came in and I think we were staying at the Hilton or the one down the Portobello Road. Do you remember which one that was? Was that a Marriott or a Hilton?
The Radisson.
It might have been the Radisson, which was a great...
The Vanderbilt.
I think so,
Yeah.
right?
And there was a pub. There was like a pub we went to.
Across the street. Like it was like, we were so jet lagged. It was the day we arrived and it was beautiful. Like in one of the row houses, there was like a pub it was in a hotel as well. It wasn't in our hotel. It was like down the street. And I had this leek, what was it? Like leek and spring onion and a turnip pie in a white sauce. Like my mouth is starting to water thinking about it. I've never encountered anything like it, but it completely like opened the world of meat pies for me and just, oh my God, yum. And you like with some mash and gravy. Oh, now I'm hungry. Okay. Well, how about you?
So yeah, steak and ale pie, obviously. Like if you can get a meat pie. We don't really do meat pies in this country. Like
We do a pot
pies. I'm not a fan of pot pies at all.
I like them.
A good British meat pie.
Stick to your ribs food.
And if you want a good source for them, I know a guy. I'll put a link in the show notes.
It's the most Chicago thing ever. I know a guy.
He's a British expat who was
based out of Chicago.
He's based out of Chicago and Jolly Posh Foods, and he was dismayed at the lack of British bacon and meat pies, and so like he makes his own, and the stuff is amazing. So I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yes.
I mean, there's like typical things like fish and chips. I don't like fish at all, so I don't like fish and chips.
I love fish and chips.
I like chips.
Chunky chips.
Chunky chips.
Chunky chips with malt vinegar.
Even if you don't do fish, do chunky chips. I mean, that's
But if you get good fish and chips where the batter is light and crunchy. Okay, we should not have done this before lunch. Now I'm starving.
One of it was a more recent discovery on our trip in 2018. Cornish pasties.
Oh, yeah, you really liked them, and I would just...
Good.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Please don't send me hate mail. It was good, but I'll take a pie over a pasty any day.
Let's see. You must. This is a cultural experience that you must do at least once. Going to get a takeaway.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So like, what that is like most like towns and villages will have like a hole in the wall shop
that looks sometimes a little sketch, but maybe might be pristine.
Yeah, this is a place you might not normally go into. But they'll have like fish and chips and chicken and chips and like burgers and chips and
they like to fry things.
Yeah, like it's a menu that like serves everything to everybody, but the food is usually like really greasy but also really good, and it's the place that locals will go when they want a quick meal. Not McDonald's, they'll go to the takeaway.
You know what I haven't had yet? Speaking of cultural experience, I'm thinking like takeaway. I haven't had a kebab. Like, that is, like, the quintessential if you've been out drinking and, like, you're on your way home, you might stop and get a kebab somewhere. That's on a to-do list.
Yeah, so get a takeaway. You can't throw a stone in London without hitting a takeaway.
Yep.
There's many famous takeaways.
Yep.
Yeah, you must do a takeaway. It's a cultural, especially if you've been out and having a good time all night.
Yep, you want something kind of greasy and crunchy, salty.
The corollary to that is a full English breakfast.
Yep, that will set you right.
I do love a good English breakfast, although I scramble my eggs, which is, I don't do the beans and
Black pudding, blood sausage.
the regular sausage, yeah.
A banger, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that a banger on
Yes.
full English?
Well, that's the slang term for all English sausage.
Oh, well,
'Cause
delicious bangers and mash.
They used to have a lot of high water content, and when you'd fry them, they would pop.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
That's why they call them bangers.
Oh, hey, I learned something on our own podcast.
There you go. And then, so bangers and mash is obviously a favorite of yours. I know that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like mash, so
Sunday roast.
I was gonna say
Did I steal your thunder?
it's another cultural experience you must have, a Sunday roast
In a pub.
in a pub in the country.
Yeah, if you can do it in the countryside, it's now not. We've had some great Sunday lunches in London.
Some terrible Sunday lunches too.
Absolutely, but you typically go do it on a Sunday. You want to book in first, somewhere where you can go for a walk, because it's a heavy meal.
Like when we were there in October, I did like research for weeks on the perfect place to have Sunday lunch.
And nailed it. Nailed it.
So good.
I know, right?
So-
See, we did this before lunchtime. This was a strategic error.
And then finally, I mean, high tea with tea and scones. You can't really.
Clotted cream. We can get clotted cream here in the U.S., but I've never had clotted cream here like there. Just yum.
So those are just a few. Are you okay over there?
I'm sorry, I'm hungry now.
So those are just a few that we recommend trying. A lot of people, there's still a stereotype that British food isn't good, and it's so not true that like so beyond. You have to get the right foods.
Okay, so when we started traveling to Great Britain in the early 2000s, I had a really hard time eating in Britain. Like,
That's what
it just took me a long time to learn how to eat in Britain, which that sounds really stupid, but I will say the culinary landscape in the past 20 years in Britain, now I go and I come home and I can't like button my pants because I've eaten all this lovely rich food. So, I mean, you could really do well in Britain.
All right, moving on. So this is a fun question, but also we have to thread the needle on our answers here. What's a British thing you wish Americans would adopt more widely? So that's
Let me get my list.
that's again, it's a hard to answer because we don't like, again, in the early days of the blog, we would write all these lists of things that America should adopt, and we don't do that anymore because it's really, a lot of people are put off by negativity, and we don't want to say that, the way America does something is inferior, but there are things that the British do that I really appreciate and wish we would do more of here.
Let me say, though, because you keep saying this, that's not to say that clearly the question's been asked, we're going to give an answer. So we're always going to be honest about our answers, but we can be honest about our answers and say something we like or we don't, or we dislike. We can just be nice about how we do it. Like, same with, like, going back to the question about tourists, things to see or not see as a tourist. We can say things that we didn't enjoy, but that doesn't mean that we're knocking attractions. So, same thing with this. Like, yeah.
Well, my first one is something that bugs me about 3 or 4 times a day. So, every time I turn my tea kettle on and have to wait more than 5 minutes, an electric tea kettle, and have to wait more than 5 minutes for it to heat up, I wish American kettles were as quick as British ones. And I know the reason why voltage is different, and so their kettles are much more efficient because they've got 240 volt versus our 120. But I just wish our kettles were better. I'm actually tempted to wire a 220 and buy like some kind of high powered kettle just so it heats up faster.
I hope you have some self-awareness. You're like, I have to wait 5 minutes for my kettle. Like,
well, now I have to wait even longer because we have the new reverse osmosis for our water, and that takes forever to fill the kettle, and then I have to wait forever for the kettle to heat up. It took 10 minutes to make this cup of tea before we recorded this podcast.
You are so soft.
I know. I mean, we used to have a hot water cooler where the water would come out hot. Now you couldn't make a cup of tea with it, but if you filled the kettle with it, and then it would boil within a minute, which was great.
Like supercharging it.
But I hate our kettles. It's a weakness. What's something you think we should do?
One of the things that I really love about Great Britain, and I've seen this across Great Britain, is how a grand day out is structured. So like a trip to the museum or a stately home or that kind of thing. So there's 2 parts to this. The first is you're expected to stop during your outing and have a cup of tea. And I don't mean like stop to get the cup of tea and take it in a to-go cup. No, like you're going to get glass or plastic, like reusable, eco-friendly, and you're expected to sit down and maybe you'll want a sandwich. And it's like literally you stop and it's culturally expected. Like we're in the US, you'll go out for a day.
Go, 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 go.
And maybe you'll eat on the run or that kind of thing. Or maybe you'll stop, but you're not really stopping and enjoying a meal and or like a meal and then maybe a snack. Like maybe you're going to have lunch and then you're going to have tea a couple of hours later. Like I love that.
I do too.
And the second part of that is that having traveled with small children and then having traveled without our kids is that British culture is very inclusive of children and families.
Yeah.
Like even in pubs, like, you know, we've been out like in the pub garden and kids are running around, but there are activities for them. Or you'll go to, again, a museum or a stately home. There's something there for them to do. Like most attractions take into account you're going to have children with you and they're really child friendly. And we don't do that a whole lot here in the US.
There's a dedicated children's museum where they prefer you go.
Exactly. I mean, you can bring your kids to just about any attraction, but I feel like it's not, most of the attractions in the US, such as museums or cultural things, are really not targeted for children. There really aren't like super inclusive activities for families, that kind of thing, and it's just a cultural like difference. Like it's expected that kids are going to be out and like it's just really lovely and inclusive and
it's nice, you know, like when you go to a National Trust property for the day out and you see lots of families out enjoying it, and it's nice to see that because like I would have loved to have like experienced a stately home or a castle when I was a kid, but to, like it's in their backyard for a lot of these people, and so like to be able to experience that must be so, and to feel like you're welcome.
And you know, like it's a grand day out for the family. I cannot tell you how many kids I've seen out at National Trust properties where the whole family has come and, you know, there's muddy wellies in the back of the stroller, like, because the kids have been playing in the puddles. I mean, obviously maybe they've done the grounds in the house or done the house first and then the kids like went and played outside in the mud, but like it's lovely. It's really lovely.
Well, and like they put a lot of care into the experience that the kids are going to have. I have a great example for that. When 2018, I visited Bateman's in Kent, which is Rudyard Kipling's house. And Rudyard Kipling is kind of a passé literary figure, at least in America. I can imagine that for children that would be very boring to go see Rudyard Kipling's house because it's as it was in the 1930s, 20s, and 30s, and it's basically left as it was when he was alive. But to make it inclusive for the kids, to keep the kids entertained while the grown-ups are walking around enjoying, getting their experience, they put these little mice, these little sewn mice, felt mice, all over the house. And the challenge was that the kids had to find each mouse in each room. And so that gave the kids something to do while the parents were exploring the house. I thought that's such a smart thing to do.
I bet wherever the cafe was, that number one, they probably had a children's menu.
There's chicken nuggets and fries.
And number two, there was a spot for kids to either draw or, you know, do something. Like, it's really, it's so nice. And I think that's what makes Great Britain a great family vacation spot. Just the British people in general are so unbelievably kind when you're pushing a stroller or you have unruly toddlers or
had help.
People are just like somebody's having a moment. Okay.
And everyone's usually happy to see a baby or a young child. No one's like kids.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway.
So another thing I wish we would adopt. I wish our news was structured more like British news. So our news media is focused on personalities and talking heads, whereas British news is focused on delivering the actual news story.
And it's very global.
And it's very global in its outlook. And most news readers on British news are simply that. They're news readers. They're not famous. They're not celebrities in their own right because they're on TV reading the news. And I think we need more of that because our media is very divisive.
Right now. That's your opinion.
Well, and it has been for 20 years. I mean, cable news. So, like, if I want to get the news...
Stray back.
straight back. So, like, if I want to watch the news and get some idea of what's going on in the world, I'll turn on the BBC World News Channel.
Well, to find out what's going on outside of the U.S. as well.
Because our news is very politics heavy and ignores the rest of the world.
Very inward.
So, what's another thing you think we would adopt?
I love that you can get a taxi cab just about anywhere. You can be in the most remote corner of nowhere. It's just you and cows. And you can dial a cab. I mean, it's incredible.
My WhatsApp, which a lot of Americans don't even have a WhatsApp, my WhatsApp is filled with all the local taxi drivers I've used over the years.
Yep. I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, we've went on this long walk and I don't want to walk anymore. I mean, you're still going to have to find a pickup point, but they'll take you back.
Yeah, I remember one time when I went to Oxford for a course the first time, I walked from Tolkien's grave to the Trout Inn because it's in Morse, but it's like a 1.5 mile walk, and it was a hot like summer day. And so by the time I got there, I was exhausted, and I had a nice pub lunch, and I was like ready for a nap. But there was a taxi in the parking lot who had just dropped somebody else off, and I'm like, "Can I have a taxi back to Oxford?" And drove me back. It was nice.
Nice.
And but on that, I would say attitudes towards open access to the countryside.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I love that there are public footpaths and ways to explore around Britain that are open to everybody. We just don't have that around here. And trespassing is dangerous around here.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
I live in a very rural area, but I would never walk on, even on open farmland, I would never walk on somebody's property because you could get shot.
Well, and it's not very neighborly.
No, it's not. I mean, you can get permission.
Yes.
The only open areas we have around here are the national park or the state park, and even those you have to pay to get in now. And so I think that's a shame that we don't have a lot of open areas to go for walks.
At least where we are in the country.
Anything you'd like to add?
I like that the British dress up for things. Like, I like that there is still this, I don't know, there's still this, they dress for a fancy dress party and they'll
dress for a nice dinner.
Yeah, like, I feel like, and maybe that's changed post-pandemic, but I know that's definitely changed post-pandemic in the U.S., and I won't go much further into that, but I don't know, I like that the British have a proper way of doing things, and they stick to it. And it might seem a little old-fashioned, but I think it's lovely, and it just keeps things on an even footing. I like it.
Oh, this next question's a lot of fun.
Okay.
What was the best thing that you did on our last trip? So we were last there in October for a conference. We stayed on for a few days to explore the Cotswolds. What was the best thing you did?
I think we're going to say the same thing.
Oh, yeah?
I think it's pub lunch.
Yeah?
At crisp fall afternoon, really lovely, delicious, hearty pub lunch, National Trust property, the whole day. That whole day was phenomenal.
Yeah, and especially after it was a very stressful morning and a very aggravating drive to get out of London, and then to finally get into the countryside and relax in a country pub for lunch, which I had booked ahead months in advance, and then to go for a walk at Basildon Park.
It was phenomenal, phenomenal day. And then we ended our day at Thornbury Castle. Yeah. We literally had a country weekend. What is that? A country mini break?
What would you say was your second most favorite thing that we did?
Favorite thing that we did. All right. Give me a second. You're going to have to go first because it's kind of a blur.
Yeah, it is a blur.
Conference related or not?
Yeah, what was something in London that you really enjoyed?
Shoe shopping at Selfridges. Okay, so I am a shoe enthusiast, and one of my most favorite designers closed all their U.S. stores, and I won't buy a pair of shoes, especially a heel, without trying them on. And I know that Selfridges carries the brand, and usually carries a lot of the brand. And so I just went and took an afternoon and went through Selfridges. And to my earlier point, did my shoe shopping, which was bliss. It was so nice. Had my wander around, and then had lunch at the cafe. It was a little pricey, but you're at Selfridges in London. I mean, come on. But it was expected that I would probably want to sit down as a shopper, and really smart because I didn't leave the store. So I went and had my lunch. Service was phenomenal. Food was divine. And then guess what? I'm full, I'm happy, and I'm still in the store. So smart.
I'd say my favorite thing when we were in London And granted, I didn't have that much time in London because I was at the conference. I got to ride the tube a couple times. That was nice because I actually hadn't ridden the tube in almost 10 years. As much as I've written about the tube, I just hadn't had a chance to ride it in a long time.
The Chelsea Pensioners Hospital.
Yeah, the Royal Chelsea Pensioners Hospital.
That was exceptionally cool.
That was fun. We rode the tube there, and
we
bought poppies, and yeah, we went to the new museum.
And we got the most beautiful weather when we were there. So like the leaves were falling. It was crisp but not cold. Yeah. I'd like to redo those days. Can we redo those days?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're doing it. She said it.
No.
All right. Next question.
The dog snores.
This is a good question. Where are the statues to the late great Queen Elizabeth II? It's a good question. They are in the works. Many cities and towns have already unveiled monuments to the late Queen, but the big official one will be in St. James's Park, which is just a short Buckingham Palace, and they're going to be unveiling it in 2026. So
coming up soon.
Yeah, so that'll be the big monument to Queen Elizabeth, kind of like how Victoria's right in front of Buckingham Palace. Lizzie will be down the road.
Spot was taken.
Down the road.
Seats taken.
So they are coming. So I think because it's been, almost 3 or 4 years now since she died, that people are kind of wondering, like, it seems like we're all moving on very quickly, but it's about the right amount of time to get these things built, because it's a monument's going to take artistry, and there's going to be
funding,
there's going to be a committee involved, and then it has to be sculpted. So it's happening. So patience is required. Ooh, the next one's kind of fun. I'd be interested to hear your answer.
Okay.
I'd like to ask, what do Americans think of the British stereotypically? You ever seen the episode of The Simpsons where they go to London?
Yeah, I think that it's really funny that I see it reflected in media a lot, that people assume because someone has a British accent, they're either very rich or very proper or exceptionally smart.
Yeah. We've heard,
like, it boosts the IQ, and
we've heard British expats say that their accent is a hugely valuable business asset.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
here in the U.S.
people automatically have this deference towards it, which is weird because we don't want deference to anything in America.
I wonder, though, if it's the reverse, though. Like, if there are American accents that the British pick up, or if we're all lumped together, or if the British ear picks up. I mean, I guess there would be some accents that, would be easier, like a New York accent or a Southern accent. You're definitely going to notice that. But, Midwestern is a little more nuanced. North Midwest, Chicago.
American ear can barely tell the difference between the British accents, but British people can tell the difference between someone who lives 5 miles away.
You can tell the difference, but that's just years of travel and tons of British media.
Right, my funniest experience. I was on a heritage steam day out with an Irishman, and the train conductor was Scottish, very thick Scottish accent. And the Irishman could not understand anything that the Scottishman was saying, but I could understand it clearly because I've watched so much Scottish TV over the years that I have an ear for accents. And so I had to translate what the Scotsman was saying to the Irishman.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I go, it's okay. I speak British. So.
Well, don't you mean Scottish?
Yeah, well, that was the joke.
You're going to get hate mail for that.
I stereotypically, I think we think of the British as friends. We're a country that we speak the same language. We share a lot of cultural and historical heritage. But we mostly experience Britain through movies and TV shows.
Correct.
They usually paint a overly positive image sometimes. But it's an image we tend to like and search for when we visit Britain.
Yes.
We've been allies longer than we've been enemies, and we care way more about the American Revolution than the British do.
Oh, our War of Independence, as they call it?
Yeah. They actually don't even learn much about it. They don't even really learn much about it in school, because it's kind of a side note in British imperial history.
But it's usually a really fun conversation when you have it, because their version of events, our version of events, are really different, as you would expect it to be. But that can be a fun conversation.
It is fun. But I would say the events of the 20th century are more impactful on our perceptions of each other than anything else. Yeah, we just kind of think of ourselves as a common culture separated by an ocean.
Cousins.
We're cousins, The cousins you like.
Yeah.
Not the cousins you don't like.
And moving on from that.
Let's see. Well, this could be a really fun one. We'll have to be very careful with this one, too. What was your biggest travel flop or misadventure on your travels?
Oh, my God.
That could be a whole podcast.
Oh, my God, that would be a lot of fun, actually.
Well, we'll mark that down as a future podcast idea. But let's see. Well, You go first, because I'm going to have to think about this one.
Oh my God. So for the rest of my life, just the thought of potted shrimp makes me green. So this is a really funny story. We went down to Swanage. You had a contact who was amazing and lovely. And we
God,
had
I hope
William
she's
with
not
us.
listening.
Well, if she is still, I'm so sorry. We had Will with us. And so he was little. He was still, I think he was a toddler. And she took us around and showed us Swanage, and she drove, and which we were grateful for because the roads are real topsy-turvy and curvy, and I don't do real well in the backseat of a car. So it was real foggy that day too, and I'm not really prone to car sickness, but I guess there's something to be said, like when you can't see the horizon, it can also lead to car sickness. Like, anyway, we stopped at this adorable seaside cafe, or it wasn't seaside, but adorable little village cafe. So cute, really twee. And she was like, they had potted shrimp on the menu. And I love seafood, and I eat as much seafood as I can in Britain because it's lovely and fresh. We're landlocked here in the Midwest. So she was like, oh, it's really good. You should try it. Well, first of all, having never had potted meat before or been experienced potted meat, it comes cold. And it was kind of like in a cross between a mousse and a jelly. It was definitely a different experience, and that's one of the things that is a cultural difference, is when you go out to eat, you're kind of expected to finish your plate, and here in the US, we don't, maybe it's a generational thing, I don't know, we don't really do that, and so, like, here I am, like, trying to finish my plate, and I didn't really care for it, so...
Well, she was buying.
Yeah,
that adds complications.
So we get in the car, and we're gonna do more of the day, and about 20 minutes into the car ride back, like, I was ill. Like, I was really just not well. Like,
food poisoning.
Well, I don't know if it was food poisoning or car sickness, or maybe I picked up a bug. I don't know what it was, but folks, it was ugly. And so she said, well, why don't we go back to my house for a moment, and we'll sit and have a cup of tea, and, and I felt horrible because literally I could not get out of this lady's bathroom. I mean, I was so incredibly ill, and I had asked, she was like, we'll go back to the house for a second, and I said, can we just stay and have a cup of tea? Like, first of all, I invited myself into her home, and then asked for tea, and because I just needed to buy time. Like, I knew that if, like, John could sit and have a cup of tea, so I'm, like, horribly sick in this lady's bathroom, who I don't know. I've just met her for the first time earlier in the day. I can hear our toddler running around destroying her house. Like, worst guests ever. John is trying to keep the conversation going and be just amazing. And I come out of the restroom, and, like, it was a lull. I'll just say that. It was a lull. And I'm like, we have to leave right now, because we had, 45 minutes to an hour back to the cottage that I'm like, we have to go right now. This poor woman had literally just finished setting out tea. She was like, you don't want to stay for tea? So sweet and kind. And I was like, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. We have to leave right now. And practically ran out of this lady's house. I called her the next day to apologize profusely. Just said, I'm so sorry. But that was... I share it not because of the food poisoning or whatever was going on, but just culturally, like the cultural differences, and just trying to find my way through I mean, either way, it was incredibly rude, but it was just, I was so unbelievably ill. It was just, and now I will never probably ever eat potted meat, shrimp, fish of any kind ever again.
It's a wild ride. It was a wild ride back to Shaftesbury. I have probably two stories.
I was going to say I have a runner-up as well. All right, you go next.
All right, I got two stories, both related to our son.
I bet we have the same story.
Oh, I know. I don't think it's the same story, but...
Oh, I bet it is.
So, the first one would be this
must have been the same trip.
No, this is a different trip.
Okay.
This is a long time ago. Back in 2010 or 2011, I was up for a job in London.
You're going to tell this?
I'm only telling part of this story.
Oh my God. You're spilling the tea.
I was up for a job in London. It was like the culmination of everything I'd worked for. And so, but we had to go for the interview, an in-person interview. And like literally days before this came up, she found out she was pregnant.
We had a lot of trouble starting a family.
Yeah, so it was a momentous occasion, and we were like, oh my, like this,
Huge.
A lot of positivity at one time. It was
Yeah.
it was it was a heady time. But as the pregnancy progressed, we didn't know this at the time, but she had hyperemesis.
Yeah.
And got crazy sick.
It's like it's morning sickness where it's extreme. Like I had to have a lot of medical intervention to stay pregnant because the morning sickness was so bad.
Yeah.
So bad.
And it's what Kate Middleton suffered from.
One of the Bronte sisters died from it too, right?
I don't know.
I believe so.
And so we got to Britain. So like at the last minute, like I literally pulled all the strings and all the stops so that we could go to England, so I could go to this job interview.
And you like worked in the office a couple days to try it out. It was really cool.
Yeah, the CEO was like, "Well, I feel bad bringing you all the way over the ocean just for an interview. So like, why don't we like have you consult for the week?
Yeah.
And then that'll be like part of the interview process." I'm like, "Okay." So I'm going to get paid and I'm going to do an interview and I'm going to go to London. It sounds great. And so we literally jetted over like the next week for this, and we had free plane tickets, and that's another story. But it was like everything was like all the stars were aligning, and we got there and you got so crazy sick from flying
pregnant.
Like,
and I had never.
Yeah, and you had never flown pregnant, so you had no idea.
Oh, that was scary.
It was scary. That's why this is a misadventure. And so
I notice a trend here. I have a good constitution normally.
Yeah. So we get there, and we had access to the arrivals lounge, which is rare.
Yeah, but thank God.
And you were sick there, and I'm like, I'm the worried husband, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, we are in a foreign country that we traveled to several times, but like I don't know, like, do I have to take her to the hospital? Like, she is so sick. Like, I don't know what to do here. It was
so bad.
And so we get out of the airport. We get you to the flat.
Like, I just need fresh air.
We rented a flat from a friend who was out of town, and we stayed in her flat, and like you just collapsed into bed.
Yeah,
and
it
basically
was
passed out. And I'm like, okay, she's pregnant. She's gonna need to eat. And I'm like, okay, so I need to go find her food. And so like I went down to like the corner shop and like grabbed like a bag of rice and like
really bland food.
And then I got back to the flat and I'm like, listen, I don't even know how to make rice. I don't know how to boil rice. I don't know how to take care of this woman. What am I gonna do?
Oh, that's so sweet.
And
you've never told me this story.
Oh, you were asleep during it.
Yeah.
And so like I'm going around the kitchen trying to make rice just so she could eat something, and I'm so worried. I'm like, I'm not a proper grown up. I don't know how to do this.
Oh.
And we're gonna have a baby.
You got much better at it.
Yeah.
And I could say you're an expert rice cooker today.
So she woke up, and then thankfully, we talked to we call them now our surrogate British family. We talked to our really good friends, and they like basically brought us off the cliff. And you got some tips on how to manage what you were going through.
Well, and when you go into a pharmacy in Great Britain, like the pharmacist can actually, I learned what C-bands were, and I was like...
That sounds a little woo-woo, but it worked.
Holy cow.
Yeah, when we flew home, you were fine.
Yeah, which is insane.
And
we also flew home
in first class.
We didn't buy the tickets,
again,
and nor did the company.
Most people ever fly in first class when someone else is paying for it, and that was a case of someone else paying for it.
Yeah, it was very nice.
So that would be one misadventure, because we weren't even there as tourists. We were just there. We were like, we're going to live here, so let's go through this. And then it really gave us pause about moving abroad. And
at that exact stage, because
we didn't know how anything worked. Like
we didn't know how to access the NHS.
We really know how anything works in the U.S. at the time, let alone in another country. We were
so young.
Well, we were 24, 25? So it was 2010.
It's 28.
It's 27, late 20s. We were still starting out in life. We still didn't know anything.
Speak for yourself. Anyway.
My second one involves after the arrival of said child. Everything was fine. He was born. And so we...
But hold on, really quickly. You did get the job.
I wasn't going to tell that part of the story.
Well, because people are probably like, well, then why aren't you there? Yeah. He did get the job, but because the pregnancy with him was so complicated and risky, there was just no way we could... She basically
needed medical intervention the whole time she was pregnant. So.
Like, to stay pregnant. And so there was just... There was no way that we could have done a transatlantic move during that pregnancy. There was just... And even still, after the fact, like, no way. There was just no way.
But we turned it down.
That was heartbreaking for you.
During the visa process.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but I guess the less said there, the better.
Yeah, we don't. Let's not reopen old wounds on a podcast. My second misadventure involves said child.
I bet it's the same story.
I don't think it is, but you can tell your story when I'm done because that's not a fun one, but that's definitely a misadventure. So we arranged a press trip to the Oxfordshire Cotswolds.
It's the same story.
It might have, just let me get it out.
All right, I'm not gonna say anything.
And so we had never traveled with a baby before.
No, he was older than that. I think he was, because he actually learned to walk on that trip. Like, he took some of his first steps.
Because we didn't have Mabel yet. I'm not supposed to say their names.
I already said his name.
We didn't have Mabel yet on this trip.
Yeah, William learned how to walk on that trip.
Okay, so he was born in March, so he's probably just over a year old.
Yeah. Oh my God, I still had to carry him everywhere. He was a big kid.
He was 10 pounds when he was born.
Yeah, so obviously stayed pregnant, grew a giant baby.
And so we had never traveled anywhere with him, other than a car trip.
Hence why I wrote a guidebook after the fact, but I'll let you continue.
And so he, bless his heart, he was a difficult baby. He was a very difficult baby. Yeah. Colic.
Just a fussy little guy.
He would spend a lot of time screaming, and he still does.
As a teenager.
About different things now.
Okay.
But and so the trip, the beginning of the trip went great because we did an overnight flight, as all the guidebooks say to do with the kid. He fell asleep on the plane. Well, that was the last time he slept for like a week. And
his poor little clock was so upside down. Of time.
So we got there and we went to Oxford because that's where the beginning of the trip was. We had a rental car and everything. That first night in the hotel in Oxford, he would not go to sleep.
And now we've been up for more than 20, going on like 36 hours.
That's all we wanted to do was to sleep, and he would not sleep. Not only would he not sleep, he wouldn't stop crying.
Yeah, he was just like, again, his little clock was so upside down.
It's not his fault. It's our fault for doing this to him. I mean, really. Yeah. It's our fault. And so, but like, he would not stop. And most parents will understand this feeling of like you're so lost in it, you don't know what you're going to do. And so we thought, okay, well, when he's at home and he's like this, because he has a track record, we put him in the car and drive him around.
Yeah.
And so it's like 2 a.m.
Yep. And
so we threw his butt in the car seat in the rental car and drove the Oxford Ring Road several times until he fell asleep. Miles until he fell asleep. And we went to a Tesco.
Yeah.
To a pharmacy, and we're like, please help us. Do you have anything that will make him go to sleep? And this is when we discovered, what was it?
I can't even.
They don't sell it anymore.
No, it wasn't at the Tesco. I bought paracetamol, which is Tylenol.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, maybe he's teething, or maybe he's in pain. Like, because he wasn't outwardly ill. So I bought that. That didn't help. And then the next day, I don't want to ruin the end of your story, but we were still exceptionally sleep deprived as grown-ups, to the point where I'm like, John, we've got to sleep. You cannot be driving around like this. We're a danger to others. We're a danger to him, because we just have not slept. And so it was like in this really small village, went into the pharmacy, really old school. Like the pharmacist was like 100 years old. And I don't mean that as in a derogatory way, like old school pharmacist. And he pulled out a bottle. I don't even remember.
I don't remember what it was called either.
But he told me they made it for children.
And it helps him sleep. And we're like, okay, gave it to him.
We'll take the bottle.
And sure enough, it righted his clock and put him back.
We gave him a dose that night. He slept. And
then years later, or like the next trip, we went to the pharmacy to ask for this.
Because we had two kids.
Because then we had a baby again.
With jet lag.
And then the pharmacist was like, man, we don't sell that anymore. We don't do that to our kids anymore. We're like,
I was like, what?
We're like, what? Was this something that we shouldn't have done?
I don't know.
Anyway, so I have fond memories of just circling the Oxford Ring Road, driving by the mini factory multiple times in the middle of the night. And then finally he fell asleep. We got him back to the room, and then he woke up.
Yeah. I mean, fell asleep, carried him asleep the whole way. And we were like in a topsy-turvy, like English hotel. And so it was like, felt like a mile from the car park to the room. I just remember staying up with him watching a documentary on Pathé newsreels, which was really interesting.
So, yeah, those would be the two misadventures off the top of my head.
I have 3 words for you. Sally Lunn's buns.
Well, it's not the one I was thinking.
What word were you thinking?
The one where he woke up and threw up all over the pub.
My God!
Did I just trigger something?
Yes. So notice you see a lot of, like, repeat of illness here, but no, contrary to my previous statement about Britain being super inclusive of children, and this is nothing against Sally Lunn's buns and Bath, like, my kid was completely in the wrong. Same trip, but we were quite a few days into the trip. His clock had righted. But at the end of the day, this is a toddler in a stroller.
It's hot. It was hot.
It was like July or something.
No,
and
it was May.
But it was hot. And like we were doing, I think it was even a press thing we were doing for Sally Lunn's buns, which is
we'd been given an itinerary by Visit Bath of all these things to do, and we were ticking them off.
And which was lovely. And so we went to go sit down in the dining room, like early evening dinner, and our toddler just went nuts. I mean, like, was over it, completely done, and it's the only time I've ever been asked to leave a restaurant. He literally pulled the tablecloth off the table. I mean, and he was so fast. I mean, because here I'm like trying to placate him, like, okay, young new mom. Oh my God, it was so bad. And I think you had left to go get something, or you were going to meet us there. And you came up.
We took turns.
Yeah, because we took him out a couple times even.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out, and we had like a packable stroller, and I had that like could sling over my shoulder. And I came out with him. You probably heard us walking out as he was flailing in my arms, like full meltdown with the stroller slung over me. And you were like, what? And I'm like, we've been asked to leave. It was horrible. Which, in all fairness, they were completely in the right. My kid was completely insane and destroying the dining experience of everybody else. But I have never been so embarrassed in my whole life.
And we tell him that story, and he's like, I believe it.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that sounds like me. Like, oh, gee, thanks. I'm so glad you're that self-aware.
He's still kind of that way today. That no, let me finish my statement.
That's why we don't take him out to eat that much, right?
No, oh my God. No, when he's done with something, he's done.
Yeah, he's
like,
done.
he's just like, that's it, I'm moving on. But thinking, like, most of our travel mishaps have either been from a knowledge gap, like, how does this work?
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh, 9 times out of 10, as I'm thinking back about these things, it was spots where we needed medical care.
Yeah.
Or, like, we were really afraid,
Yeah, because both of us have gotten sick on our travels while we've been there, which sucks because you're there and you don't want to.
But it happens.
It happens. Even our most recent misadventure was the 5-pound charge to drop you at the terminal at Heathrow.
Knowledge gaps.
So our goal is
that's part of travel.
Well, and that's part of our expertise. We have these experiences so we can tell you about them, so you are forewarned.
So what's the key takeaway? If you need medical...
Don't travel with a 1-year-old.
No, please travel with a 1-year-old. Don't let it stop you.
No, we didn't let it stop us.
No, we didn't. And then we traveled the next year with a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. Now that was insane. But... we did it, and we still had a great time and made really lovely family memories.
But they haven't been back since.
I guess the less said about that, the better. But I will say this. So if you're listening to this and you're like, what are some things we learned now? As an American, if you need medical attention, you can go to the emergency room.
You can go to the A&E.
They will treat you. They will help you.
They might send you a bill.
Everybody's got to get paid. So. That's a very American way to think about it. But you can also, if it's something that's not emergent...
go to the pharmacy.
You can go to a pharmacy, and they can help you with any of the things that we talked about. They're actually helpful. And I'm not knocking U.S. pharmacists either. They're different, yeah. Pharmacies operate a little differently.
They're not all like Mrs. Tischel on Doc Martin.
Ha! Anyway, okay.
Okay, so we have not even got through half these questions, and we are over an hour already. So.
All right, so pick one last question.
You can't, no, these are key questions.
Gosh, should this be a 2-parter?
It's going to go as long as it's going to go, baby.
482 of the podcast.
Someone asked, I'm leery of driving in the UK. I need to rent a car, certainly, but is there any kind of driving class or learning to drive on the left and the rules of the road? So this is a really good question, and a question we get a lot because of a lot of Americans are very afraid to drive in the UK. And so rather than spend 20 minutes on this question, we did an episode of the podcast about driving in the UK, and it's actually one of our most popular episodes. So we'll link to that in the show notes. But basically, driving in the UK is a lot like driving here. It's just on the outside of the road. And once you're on the outside of the road,
you'll pick it up.
Your brain figures it out. You'll figure it out.
It took me 20 years to figure it out, but I've got it now.
Don't let that put you off. Get the AA guide to Britain's roads. It will tell you
helpful.
The differences in the rules and speed limits and all that, and teach you the signs, which the signs can be sometimes incomprehensible. But after about an hour of driving in the UK, you've kind of had it figured out.
Just be courteous, be kind, remember you're a guest.
Just take your time. You're not in a hurry.
People will go around you. Believe me, they will go around.
All the speed limit, because you'll get speeding tickets there too. Thankfully, I've never gotten a speeding ticket in the UK because I always...
Miracle.
Yes. We'll skip that one. That could be an episode.
We got a lot of great questions. Thank you, everybody.
So, someone asked, what are the best attractions to see outside of London? That's a whole episode.
Yeah.
That's like 10 episodes. Funny one. What are the health consequences of saying color with the letter U in it? Straight to prison.
Straight to prison.
What's
funny about that is, so every once in a while I'll pop onto your computer for something, and your computer grammar checkers and spell checkers are set to British English. So I'll do client work, and it color with a U, favorite with a U, and I'm like...
Someone asked... they're surprised that we are Indiana. Yes, we are based in Northwest Indiana. We've lived here our whole lives.
Yep.
It's fine.
We're Chicagoland area.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of think of ourselves as Chicagoland.
Suburbs.
We're an hour from Chicago. We're closer than most Chicago suburbs where we are.
Which is great when you want to fly out of O'Hare.
Yeah.
Direct.
That's one of the primary reasons is there's like 20 flights a day to Britain from O'Hare, and we're an hour and a half from the airport. And we also like living adjacent to a world-class city like Chicago, because Chicago's the best.
Yes, it is.
And we live in the country, and it's great. And we have a nice house, so as you can see, a library.
Okay.
It's nice. Someone asked, what books have you read about British history that entertained you the most? Now, this question kind of applies to me, not to you.
Yes.
There's a pile of books here. In fact, did I
time,
pre-staged The Decline and Fall of the British Aristocracy by David Cannadine. This is a formative book in my Anglophilia because it gives you the entire history of basically the, quote, fall of the British aristocracy in the 20th century, which began in the 19th century. It's very big. It's one of my favorite books. And the same subject, Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, not a history book, but it's set in the decline of the aristocracy, but in the heyday of the 1920s and 30s and the interwar period, one of my favorite periods of history. Highly recommend that. And the drama. The drama's great. I recommend The Iron Lady by John Campbell. Margaret Thatcher is a very controversial figure, but she's a fascinating figure. Usually the answer to is why is Britain the way it is now? She's usually the answer in the long tail. So highly recommend learning about her, even if you don't like her. Mr. Churchill's Profession. Many people don't know that Winston Churchill actually made his living as a writer, because at the time, at least for most of his life, MPs weren't even paid. And so this is about his career as a writer and about how he is a man of letters. And, when he won the Nobel Prize, it was for literature. So
yeah, you have all of his...
I have most of his books on the shelf behind me. His History of English-Speaking Peoples is his most famous. That gives you a history of the English-speaking peoples from Roman times to now. He also wrote a 6-volume history of World War II. And considering he was heavily involved, he would know. And then this last one I read a few years ago is one of my favorite books about English history. It's called The Last Wolf by Robert Winder, and it explains the history of what we would call Englishness, and it begins with England's eradication of wolves on the island of Great Britain. So it's a fascinating tale about we's landscape and natural history and culture, and it's super good. Someone asked, what do English people do on Christmas Eve? Which I thought was a good question because we actually haven't really covered that on a lot of our Christmas stuff. They do carol services, so a lot of people will watch carols from kings on Christmas Eve. It's broadcast.
Nativity play?
Yeah, nativity plays. So in America, we leave milk and cookies out for Santa. In Britain, they leave out mince pies and sherry.
Or wine.
So, and as you know,
Yeah.
as we're Santa, I mean, that appeals more. Christmas light tours have become popular in recent years. We've seen a few of those at the stately
Christmas
homes.
parades?
Not really. They don't do parades.
Oh, no. Okay.
But like the light displays we've been to
Oh,
at
yeah.
the stately homes.
Longleat did one?
Yeah, or they do the pantomimes in the stately
Oh,
home.
pantomimes, that's a huge one.
Yeah,
but I don't know if they do it on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I don't know if they do it on Christmas Eve either. Um, a lot of people will watch TV on Christmas Eve. A lot of Christmas specials will air on Christmas Eve, including The Snowman. Channel 4 broadcasts that every year on Christmas Eve. Basically, Britain kind of starts to slow down for the big day,
which is really lovely.
Which is nice. So, one more question. Someone asked, if you remove the Norman Conquest and Winston Churchill out of the equation, what moment, person in British history, in your opinion, made the biggest and longest lasting impact, and why? That's a really good question. I've been thinking about this one for like a week. And my answer is a social reformer, a lawyer, and a priest walk into a pub. So my answer is Octavia Hill, Sir Robert Hunter, and Hardwick Rawnsley. They're the founders of the National Trust. I think they have done more to protect the founding of the National Trust has done more to protect Britain's natural and built landscape than any other organization, and we wouldn't be able to experience Britain as we know it today if the National Trust didn't exist. So that's my answer, is the National Trust. Do you have an answer? What about Edward Jenner?
Yeah, incredible individual.
You really liked that when we visited.
I did.
So,
you know what? I'm going to say Edward Jenner's wife. Yes, and he had children.
Okay.
And basically was like, hey, honey, I'm going to do the smallpox vaccine on our kids. I really think it will work. So I'd say Edward Jenner's wife. Like that, yeah.
So final question, and so we can wrap this up.
Yes. It's the podcast marathon, folks.
In your 20 years of being dragged to Britain.
Drug.
Repeatedly.
Is it dragged or is it drug?
I don't know. What has been your favorite experience?
That's a big question. My most favorite, of all time? My most favorite of all time, or my most favorite of all time that others can recreate?
Yeah, that's something that other people could do, I guess.
Okay, let me think. I've got lots of favorites.
We're already over on time, so go ahead.
Borough Market. Love Borough Market. If you're a foodie like me, Borough Market, definitely do that.
I think you've done that more than once, haven't you?
Yeah.
I've only done it once.
Literally eat my way through Borough Market. Do you want to go get something to eat? No, I'm full, thanks. Where is it? Islington. Take the tube up to Islington. There's an alleyway full of antique stalls. Exceptionally cool. There used to be there might even still be a great knitting shop up there called Loop. You could take a whole afternoon and do all the stalls. That's the antique shops. Really, really amazing. Favorite thing. We've been so lucky, blessed.
We've done so much over the years.
We have, and we've had so many incredible opportunities to do some of the things we did, like the private tour of St. Paul's. To be able to go and see places and things that, and have access to things that are not common has been just such an incredible treat. But okay, I know what I'm going to say. And it's going to be so, folks, just warning you now, you're going to end up with cavities. Just spending the time with you. We are so busy in our daily lives that getting to go explore and just see you, you're peak happy John, whether we're in the countryside or we're in London, we've had so many incredible experiences. Land's End to John O'Groats, went from strength to strength, taking the sleeper train back to London. That was huge. We've had the opportunity to stay in just some of the most beautiful, historic places across Britain where you're like, a king or queen was here. Or just so much history happened on the grounds here. Christmas, we've done a couple Christmases in the cottage. We've been very, very lucky to have just really. So I don't think it's fun. I think there are lots of little things. And so the things that people can recreate, spend a holiday in a little cottage in the countryside and do British Christmas, because British Christmas is awesome. Have a night out on the town in London. You know, go see a show and
A nice dinner.
book in for a nice dinner or just do a
Rules.
nice dinner. Yes, yes. Okay, now we're back to food and I'm hungry again. But what's yours?
I have two things. Obviously, traveling with you.
Okay.
I can't top that.
Says the guy who's like, can I go alone to Britain this summer?
But I'm always asking that question, so you shouldn't be surprised by this point. Two experiences are kind of top tier. One, which I've talked about ad nauseum, which people are probably, longtime fans are probably sick of hearing about, is the first time I visited Gold Hill in Shaftesbury, Dorset. And then you were key to that happening. You made it happen. You did the anti-millennial thing and picked up the phone to sort it out.
Yep, we had come that far. We were not going.
Yep, and that's why I married this woman. Damn torpedoes.
You asked me to marry you on that trip.
I did.
I think that was like the day after.
And I think it's because I dreamed of going to this place for so many years, and then to go and to walk around the corner of the town hall, and then there it is, and they're like, this place is real. Like, it's an actual real place. It's not just in a picture. And
now in the age of AI and all that, though, right?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see, like, our kids' generation, or if our children have children, like, how that perception will change.
Yeah, and I think it like opened a door that, like, Britain is full of these beautiful places.
I opened the door?
Yeah.
Now you tell me.
It's your fault.
Oh.
It's your fault.
Okay.
That there's so many of these wonderful places in Britain to see, and that they're real places that you can go to. It's such a meaningful moment. It's like a foundational moment in my life and in Anglotopia. And I think it's still hard to top seeing it for the first time. And I've been back 24 times since, and every time it still just gets me. Like, I have to die on that hill.
Please don't. God, the poor emergency services.
I'll be dying walking up it because it's so steep.
Like, they're going to be like, can we just wait till he rolls down to the bottom?
So...
The picture of the cheese rolling down the hill, it's just us rolling.
It's how he wanted to go.
That's true. All right. So what's your second?
My second it's actually, because it's my favorite experience, I've done it twice, is doing the summer courses at Oxford. I love doing those. Those are my favorite. I didn't get to go to Oxford University. I went to a state school, which is fine.
Oh, look at you, a state school.
I went to the best state school, I went to Purdue.
Yeah, boiler up.
That's right. But I didn't get to study in the cloistered confines of stony Oxford.
I didn't get to study. Man, you got a college education. You got pardon my French, a damn good college education.
But as an adult, it's lovely that you can go have an Oxford experience for a week and do a course that interests you with other people who are interested in the same thing, that has excursions to go do things related to the thing you're studying. It's great. And that you're fed and watered and you have accommodation for the whole week, and you get to spend it on Oxford, which is one of the best cities in Britain. So
I want to add
in the show notes.
I want to add an honorable mention. You know what my favorite thing to do in Britain is? Yes, kind of. Is to have an amble around a National Trust property. Not the grounds. The grounds are gorgeous. But you, like, I don't know.
That nosy houses.
You literally get to walk around, like, on a rainy day. You go in the middle of the week. Nobody's there. Don't go on half term. Nobody's there. It's cold and drizzly. And you're basically having a wander of somebody's house who used to live there. And then, like, tea. I mean, how many times have we been to a National Trust property? And it's like, oh, the cafe are in the stable blocks. And you are, like, huddled over, like, a cup of tea, like, because it's freezing in the stable blocks, eating. But the tea is, like, steaming. And you have that lovely sandwich. And, like, or a bowl of soup. Or, National Trust property cafes they're phenomenal. So that's probably, like, rather than a bunch of little ones, it's a rainy afternoon in the middle of the week.
I mean, I think we're pretty much in agreement on there.
That is like a phenomenal way to spend an afternoon.
Because even when we're there, we kind of plan our days around going to National Trust properties and walking around. And when we were just in the Cotswolds, I think we visited several.
Well, it's just such
time.
And it's a tangible way to learn about history. Like, when you learn about the people who lived in the house, it's so interwoven with world history, not just British history. Like, it's amazing. Anyway.
That was a lot of questions.
They were great questions.
We didn't answer them all, but
I'm so sorry.
we have talked long enough.
Exactly.
I think what are we clocking in at here? 1.5 hours.
Sorry, folks.
So you have listened to us talk long enough.
Yep.
So thank you for listening to the Anglotopia podcast. Thank you for sitting down to do this with me today.
You're welcome.
My lovely wife. And thanks for getting us to 50 episodes. Now we're going to have to plan something big for the 100th episode next year.
I have ideas.
Oh, yeah? To tell me.
Yeah, I'll tell you off camera.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe, like us, or leave a comment. Or if you have questions, please ask us questions, because we love doing the Q&As. If you enjoy all the things that Anglotopia does, please consider joining the Friends of Anglotopia Club so we can keep doing it. You get early access to new episodes of the podcast. You get a special newsletter on Sundays about something lovely and British, discounts.
That's written by a human.
Monthly desktop wallpapers, all kinds of wonderful things. So please come join. Link is in the show notes. So join us next time as we continue to explore British history, travel, and culture. Thank you.